Curry Nation, how you guys doing, man? Today I'm going to bring you guys brand new Cypher setups, post buff on all maps with the new long trip wires. You're going to see with these setups that it becomes a lot easier to convert your setups into kills and win rounds with it, because these wires cover so much of the site that the chances of people walking into them just skyrocketed. Fracture is one of the tougher maps for Cypher for a really long time for me, and these long wires now make it incredibly easy to farm kills. One of the things I do now is one trip here, put another trip right over here, right? So that covers the whole site. Now keep in mind a couple things. If they have like a Skydog or a Fade Util, what I do is actually put these wires head height, because it increases the chances that the util will go under it, right? And obviously this wire here, you can see why I use this wire. It's because of the wall bang right over here. And make sure when you use this wire that you're not putting it here, because typically, like when an enemy walks into a wire, they're gonna back up, right? So if they walk into this and back up, they're gonna be here, and you can't wall bang this. But if they walk here, they're gonna come here and then they're gonna back up, and you can wall bang that. And I put my camera there. This is a very simple camera, but it's really effective because it lets me know if someone's gonna be arcade. It lets me know if someone's tower, and I can actually see their guns poking out over here as well. I can see their flashes, I can hear footsteps. The reason why this camera is the best for me is because I can hear footsteps just outside their spawn here. I can hear that, right? So I can tell my team right away, like, these guys are here. You're gonna let them actually walk up to the stair area. So once you start seeing someone in the stair area, you're gonna activate this cage. And in a lot of situations, by the way, the enemy's probably gonna smoke this for you, like a brim smoke, omen smoke. There's already gonna be a smoke there. So that's great, that helps you out, right? Because now you're just gonna wait for them to walk up the stairs, and then you're gonna just peek this. And you got this kill here, and you got this kill here. And make sure you let your teammates know about this setup, because they're probably going to be smoked out over here, and they can wallbang that, and they can try to get a kill on that as well. So this works really, really well. It's like a meat grinder, right? Like you're giving them sight, and they walk in and they all just kind of get grinded up. All right, guys, now we're gonna make our way to A Site over here. And again, I use the same meat grinder analogy for this setup as well, because A Site's kind of dangerous, man, because you're vulnerable to like so much util, stun, the aftershock thing, stuff to deal with Sova ults, raise grenade. You got all that stuff. Like, I don't want to deal with that. So, I play here. Like, I play right there. That's what I want to do. That's the safest area to play. And what I try to do is, I just make them run into a meat grinder. These new trips make it a lot easier. So, same thing, wall bang method right over here. Then, I like to come here, and I like to use this trip right over here. So what this does is a lot of times enemies will walk in. They're going to come into this area, try to peek this. So as they come into here, you're gonna wall bang that, and as they come into this, you're gonna wall bang this. And in terms of the camera, you got two options. I use two camera spots on this. This one here, this one's obviously really good. You're gonna be able to hear the footsteps. Usually I can hear the footsteps all the way here, right over here. I let my teammates know right away, like the enemy's gonna push A. This camera here is a new camera that I've started using post fracture change. This camera is also really good. You're gonna be able to see everything. Works really well. You can see this drop down. Speaking, and then I cage myself here. And again, same thing as before. Like typically speaking, they're gonna smoke you out here, which is great. Yeah, as soon as they smoke me out, I'm sliding in here, and I'm camping this trip and this trip right there. It's really effective because you can tag one guy as soon as they're coming out, and that's so annoying for them. That's gonna slow their push down, and you might be able to get a wall bang there as well. So you can potentially get 3 people with this meat grinder setup. All right, guys, so now we're on Pearl, and we're gonna start on B Site. And again, this is another setup that just became a lot more powerful for me after this buff. I like to play off wall bangs on this, okay? It's one of the best sites for Cypher. And again, I like to put this wire here. This is a newer wire. The newer wire that I really like is this one. It covers the whole site. Even if they're coming from here, they're very likely to walk into this. And if they're coming from here, I mean, they're 100% gonna have to. Make sure you put the wire, camera there, because you're gonna use this to tag. Usually when you tag people, they're gonna come into this area, and you're gonna wall bang that. So this is one of the best setups for me in the game, is because you get one wire, you get another wire, and then you get a camera tag, and you get another wall bang. So, you know, try not to tag a chamber, by the way, because if you tag a chamber, they're just gonna TP out. So make sure, you know, you tag anyone else. All right, boys, now we're on a B site on Pearl, and this is actually one of the sites that was harder to defend as a Cypher because the trips just weren't long enough to cover this choke. Now that's changed, right? You could straight up just cover this choke very easily like this. So this is actually a wire that I use, that I'm gonna use, and the other wire that I use that I also opened up is this one. So yeah, I like to use this. I cage this choke, and it's just a meat grinder. This is one thing you can do. This is gonna work at least once or twice a game, because, you know, a lot of times you're gonna walk into this and you're just gonna spray, and you're gonna get at least 2 kills. The camera, it's pretty important because you want to make sure you time this cage very well. Otherwise, you're gonna peek 5 people at the same time. So the camera I put here. This camera works really, really well for me. Usually I get 2 tags off of it. On average, I get 2 tags. Really, really effective. But I wait here, I wait for people to come. They usually don't destroy the camera. I activate this, and I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for them to walk into my trips. The only problem with this area is that if you're gonna play in this area, make sure you put these cages a little bit closer towards you, because that way it covers that whole choke. Otherwise, you're gonna be exposed, right? If it's farther away. So just keep that in mind. And then if you're playing here, it's a lot easier because now you can just do this. Now, as the game progresses, I make my setups, you know, more complex. So instead of having both trips here, I might take this trip out, and then what I do is I use this trip here, like this. So this gives me hallway control, right? And with this new long wires, what you could do is you could put it here, so that way you can wall bang this. If you're playing here, you can wall bang this, right? So you have 1 cage here, you're farming this trip, you have and then you're farming this trip with the wall bang, and then if you want to contest this area, you can just put this cage somewhere like this, cage triggered, and you have your one way. So, you know, that's another thing to keep in mind, right? Like when the game starts, my setups are very simple. I just spam wires and chokes and stuff because I know enemies are going to be aggressive and they're going to be less cautious. But as the game goes on, they're going to be very cautious. They're going to make sure they clear angles a lot more. In that situation, I got to make sure that my setups are also more complex. So, you know, towards the late game, you know, I'm using something like this, something like that, and then that wall bang trip over there, right? All right, boys, now we're on Icebox. What I do for this trip, really effective. Lower to the ground, works out really well. And if they have a raise, sky, fade, you know, what you can do is just put this wire here, head level. This is gonna get the planter. This is a default planter position. This guy's gonna jump here. He's gonna come into here, and you can wall bang this. And the other trip I use, this is gonna be for this area. It's right over here. This goes here. See that? If you want something safer, you can try something like this as well. So this is typically what I do. I like to give them A site because, you know, as a Cypher, like, you know, I don't want to play this area that much because if they have a KO, the dart's gonna hit me and my setup's gonna be useless. You know, there's usually a lot of util thrown at me over here as well. This screens area is really, really nice and safe for me to play. I can start here so I can avoid the KO dart. I avoid most utility this way. When that wall goes down, make sure you're putting this camera here. This camera is very good. Its camera is just so high that people typically don't shoot it down. They usually don't even look up far enough. You know, I wait, and as they're pushing in, I activate this cage, and I just get ready to farm them here. I'm just shooting them here, and if anyone wants to push up and go this way, they're gonna walk into this trip here, and I'm gonna farm them here. B site, the camera that I've started using a lot is this one right over here. Okay, the enemy can't see it from long, so it's gonna stay up. And they're always gonna have their back to this camera, which makes it very good because they're never gonna see it most of the time. A lot of times I'm just looking at this camera and telling my teammates to watch the minimap because we know all the enemy positions. When it comes to the newer trips, I like to use this one here. It covers that default plant spot. The other wire that I really like to use is this one right over here. A lot of aggressive duelists will usually peek this and they're gonna keep going. They usually want to take control of this area, so they're gonna do this. And they're gonna walk into this. You know, as you see some people here pushing up, you're gonna activate this. As you see people pushing up there, you're gonna activate that, and you're gonna just farm this, farm that, or you can just have one cage triggered, and you can just do this and that. Alright guys, now we're on Ascent A Site. Some of the newer things that I want to share with you guys on this. The camera I use now for this site now a lot is this one. So I could see people like as they're walking into A main. I could see people if they walk in from tree. This is a great retake camera, but also I could see people if they're walking up this area here as well. So this camera is like, you know, default every time for me. Or I just put it here if I'm like lazy or something, right? So just keep that camera in mind. My trips that I use for this are like this now. Okay, so you're pretty much covering the whole site. A couple different ways you can play this. The safest thing to do, stay here. Make sure you have someone watching tree with you. Let them walk in, activate the cages, farm them, right? Another alternative thing that you could do though, is something that I've started doing, is I put a cage here and actually play here. Now with this spot, it's a lot more dangerous because fade util, the scan, and the Sova drone, Sova dart. Make sure you're ready to shoot the dart. It's here somewhere. So pre-aim that. If there's a drone, you have to tell one of your teammates to kind of shoot that down. You know, you really can't reveal your position if you're here. It doesn't work too well. So just keep that in mind. This is a riskier setup, but it pays off because what I do is I put one cage here. As far you want it to be as close as you can to this corner. Essentially, what I do with this is that I activate this as they're walking in. I shoot the people with the trips, I activate this one, and then I sneak in here. So now this is turned into a corner cage setup where when this goes down, people won't expect you to be in this area. But you're putting one cage here and one cage in that corner. You're activating this, you're shooting people through the trips, you're walking in here, coming here. And now you're in a corner cage. And when this goes down, people won't know you're here, so you can get the planter, or you can get the guy A main, and then you could swing. Really, really powerful. So now we're on B site, and typically what I like to do, one of the setups I use a lot for this is I just stand here. Usually the enemy's gonna smoke this. If they don't smoke it as they're walking in, I'm gonna activate this cage, and I'm gonna just farm these trips. This is a newer trip that most of the time they walk in to just clear this, and then once they clear this, they're gonna walk into here to activate the switch. Right, so keep that in mind. This is one setup you can do. You can really get 2 or 3 kills with this. The first time I did this setup, after the buff, I got an ace with it. You can see it in my previous video. All right, so now we're on A site on breeze. So what I like to do here is put this camera, right over here somewhere. Gives me a good vantage point of people coming in. I can see this door area. You're gonna put this strip like this right over here. Okay, so you have this covered over here, and then you have this jump up covered over here. The only thing that's not covered is this rare scenario where the person walks like this over here, and for that you have your camera and you can just tag them, right? So that's what I typically do there. And then when it comes to this area, is you're gonna do this extra long trip like this, like that. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna get them even if they just kind of run into this pyramid right here. As they walk in, you're gonna activate the cage, and you just kind of move yourself here. Cage triggered. And this is gonna help you get anyone that walks into any of those trips. A lot of times you might get a collateral, right? So when this cage goes down, you can see I'm directly in the line of sight of both of those trips. All right, so for B site on breeze, again, what I like to do is I like to play over here. This is a very safe spot to play in for me because I don't have to worry about KO darts, and I don't have to worry about silver darts and a lot of util being thrown at me, which is usually what happens when I play in that area over there. First trip, this extra long trip is really good. It's gonna cover pretty much this whole site on entry, right over here. This is gonna cover everything, right? This guy walks here, gets that. If this guy comes here to plant, it gets him. Now the camera, I put in a very simple spot, something like this, because again, all I care about is timing this cage, right? I want to make sure I'm timing that as they're gonna walk into the wire. So I'm over here. I see flashes coming in, I see them walking in, so I'm going to activate this, and then I'm going to peek this, I'm going to try to get a kill in that wire, and then I'm going to come here, I'm going to activate this, and I'm going to try to get a kill in that wire. So that way you get 2 kills from a very safe spot. Haven A site. So for this, one of the setups that you could do is right over here, 1 wire here, and 1 wire here. So they're both hip level, so should you rotate to another site, this is still gonna watch your flank. No one's gonna be able to sneak up to you on A site. That I set up in heaven over here, I watch through this camera, right? So I know they're probably gonna smoke heaven. So when they smoke heaven, I slide in over here, and I just farm these trips. If for some reason they don't smoke, I literally cage myself here. I activate this cage, I slide in, and I do that, right? Now these are the safe trips. Now, like if you want to be a little more aggressive and increase the chances of enemies walking into your trips, what you could do is this one. And this is what I do most of the time. As you guys know, I'm more aggressive. So I use these type of trips right over here. These low trips to the ground, and this ensures that, you know, their enemies are way more likely to walk into it, because this one is, you know, right in their face just as they walk into the site. The great thing about these trips is it also gets the guy coming from here, right? Because a lot of times they're going to come in from here and then take a right. All right, boys, the next setup is going to be on Haven B Site. So again, we're talking about aggressive trips. What I like to do on this one, this extra long trip right here, it's going to get anyone going to the right on B Site here. And then what I like to do is do this one here. And this is going to get the guy that typically goes here to plant right over here. The safest camera to do is pretty much this one right over here, because what this is going to do is it's going to ensure that, you know, you can kind of see the flashes as they're coming in. What I like to set up is here, and I usually cage that, so as they come in, I'm doing that as they walk into the trips. When it comes to C Site, I'm going to give you guys 3 trips that have really become powerful. So before, I used to kind of do this trip over here off this wire, and it would be pretty short, right? It would be, you know, somewhere like this, you know. But now obviously you can do way longer trips and you can just cover the whole site. So you can do something like this, which covers this whole area. And then the other trip I used to do before was something like this, right? But now what you could do is you could actually do something like this. So again, you can get people right at the entry. So the great thing is here you can just spam the choke and you're gonna get a couple people, right? And another trip you could do is you could just cover this right side choke right over here. Now typically what I do with this setup is I position myself here with the camera there and cages on over here. And I'm usually just pre-aiming this area right here if they have a Sova, because I know he's gonna dart that, right? So I'm just ready to shoot that. But other than that, any other util like a fade scan or a fade prowler, what I'm doing is as soon as that comes in, I'm activating this cage so it kind of covers me, right? And then as enemies start coming in, I keep activating this cage, and I know that, you know, they're gonna eventually walk through it, so I'm just waiting for them to walk through it, and I do that. Alright guys, now we're on A Site on Pine, and the trips are really good on this. So what I like to do is I do this, and then something like that, right? If their enemy is gonna rush, they're gonna rush from A short. So I usually just kind of commit everything in that direction, and then I put this trip here. Camera, you can put here. I make my way to heaven. As they start coming in, I activate this cage, and I'm ready to shoot them as they walk into the trips. And this cage really gives me good cover. And this cage, you put it on the box. That way, if someone peeks from that box, you're not really exposed to that, right? You're just here and you're killing them as they walk into your cage. Now we're on B Site. So typically speaking, you know, some of the existing setups, they've become very powerful. So something like this whole site, like this, right? So you could do something like this. But what I wanted to do was come up with something new, right? Because this new trip that kind of opens up is this right here, okay? And then the other trip that is kind of new is this one here. Now when it comes to your camera, you're going to put it right over there. So that way you can see the whole site. I just put my cage here. I put one cage there, right? Now, what I'm doing here is I'm just giving them sight. So you can get them as they try to push this area. They always want to clear back sight, so they can push this area. You can get one guy. You can also wallbang, right? Because this trip actually goes deep into this thing. So if they crash here, they're gonna light up, and you can just wallbang, right? This trip here, you know, it gets the person walking through here. But if they try to plant here, this is the default plant spot. You can wallbang this from here, like that. So this kind of gives you, you know, two kills pretty easily. There's a very high chance they're gonna walk into this, and you're in a very safe spot. You don't have to worry about a KO dart. You know, a lot of times they're gonna be the ones that smoke CT, so you can counter that as well with this. All right, boys, thanks for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoy these new Cypher setups with the new Cypher buff. These longer trip wires make it a lot easier to be effective on CT and get a lot more picks. I know I'm gonna be, you know, I can't wait till this update comes out. So make sure that you leave a like, you know, make sure you subscribe to this, because I got more setups coming up. You know, there's a couple new corner cages that I've found that I'm gonna be releasing over the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for that. So make sure you hit that sub button, hit that notification bell. Make sure you go follow on Twitch because I'm usually showing these setups off on Twitch in ranked. Anyways, man, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay spicy.